I will start off by saying, when a distinguished engineer of over 40 years experience, Engineer Peter Morris, tells you no cluster housing development, I think you should take a leaf and listen. I'm an engineer myself, but by no means as experienced as Engineer Peter Morris, but I'd just like to thank him very much for his presentation. I salute the IAZ for inviting engineers here. I'm sure architects, you do fantastic work, but your work will be nothing without engineers. So I think this is where we pat ourselves on the back. I recognize my president, the president of the Zimbabwe Association of Consulting Engineers, Engineer Nyabure, Engineer Mhlanga, I recognize you as well, and all other esteemed engineers here present. The president of the IAZ, I recognize you, and Mr. Chatora, who has just left the room, I recognize him. The deputy minister, in absentia, all protocol observed. My name is Tami Mpala, Tamsang, but Tami is okay. Mpala, I'm a past president of the Zimbabwe Institution of Engineers, but I'm also managing director for a consulting engineering firm, Hydro Utilities Consulting Engineers. I'm here to talk about wetlands and development of wetlands, sustainable urban wetlands development, but I would like to focus a bit on Harare and also take it from a technical perspective. My presentation overview really is to give an overview of wetlands, Harare's landscape and water supply history. Sorry, can I have the revolving? Anyway, I'll proceed. Legal policy perspective, current status on wetlands, solutions for improved water supply. I'll also speak about new developments of what's happening in the wetlands space. Also talk about some of the challenges that we have. And then finally, I would just also like to speak about some actions or proposals for actions that we can take when we speak about wetlands development. So when we talk of wetlands, what do we actually mean when we talk of wetlands? What do we say? What is it involved when we talk about wetlands in our perspective? The wetlands enhance and sustain biodiversity. Wetlands are there to control floods and also regulate the flow of water. Wetlands are critically important to supplement groundwater recharge. I think that's what also Engineer Peter Morris alluded to in some of his slides. Regulate downstream siltation of dams and also improve water quality. Removes nutrients and detoxifies chemicals, enhances and improves air quality of immediate surrounds, beautifies the communities that we live in, promotes healthy environment and healthy living, regulates temperature and climate, provides opportunities for educational and research purposes. So therefore there's a whole plethora of benefits that wetlands have, and I think as planners, as developers, as architects, I like the previous presenter who talked of landscape architecture. And if you look at these, benefits, for me, I think as an engineer, it dovetails very well into landscape architecture. I think Dr. Saidi also presented quite well on that. But if you look at this doc, as engineers, I think some of these benefits dovetail hand in glove for some of the features of landscape architecture that we're looking into. Next slide, please. For most of us obviously live in Harare. Harare sits on a watershed. You'll see in my graphical slides that I have where Harare is actually positioned. This also includes Rua and Chitungiza. So by the virtue of Harare being on wetland, this creates streams and rivers only if left intact. Harare forms the higher parts of what is called the High Veld Plateau, and we're sitting at an altitude of 1,490 meters. And Harare, we actually have rivers, that flow away from the CBD, meaning Harare is on top. We're on a plateau, and the rivers, drain away from the CBD. If you look at the historical encyclopedias and historical records, Harare is actually described as a parkland. Soils are reddish brown, granular clay for most parts, and grayish-brown sand for other parts. And this is very typical for a parkland surrounded by swamps and marshes. So Harare is actually known as a parkland of great biodiversity. Harare has a history of water problems. The headwater of wetlands and pollution of downstream users is quite a big challenge in that respect. Right. So this map here, this graphical map, engineers, we love diagrams and sketches and long sections and things like that. If you look at where we are, the lighter color in white or gray shows you the altitude that we are in. And Harare sits right there because we at altitudes of above or just 1,500 meters. So that's where Harare is. So when I say we are on a plateau, it means we are at the highest sort of point in terms of level differentiation. And it means we have streams and rivers flowing away, from the Harare CBD. So I think this is just a graphical appreciation for you of where we sit and why preserving wetlands is extremely important. Because if we don't do that, it means Harare suffers from water shortages, and these are some of the problems that we have, here in the country. So you can see the green part is. I think that's Gonarejo, if I'm not mistaken, but obviously the altitude is a lot lower as you go down to the southeast of the country and again to the north of the country. So in the middle, that belt here that runs just across the country is a high veld. So it further emphasizes our importance to preserve the wetlands that we have here. Next slide, please. Again, if you look at the biodiversity, if you look at the water cycle, if you look at flora, if you look at fauna as well, that is accommodated and supplemented by Harare itself. I think you can also see, where we are in terms of our dam supplies, where Harare is, and the catchment that we have there, by and large. So it is critically important when we look at the whole hydrological cycle to understand where we sit as Harare with the catchments that we have, and also the runoff. As we build development, we are reducing the aspect of rainwater filtering through and creating lots of runoff, what we call runoff. And if we don't manage that, this is what we create and allude to as accounting to some of the problems that we have here in Harare. Next slide, please. Now, I've shown you where we sit as Harare and has given you a graphical perspective, and I've spoken, and we've all spoken about the importance of wetlands. But if we go into a legal context and we look into policy, what does it say? So these next couple of slides talk about the EMA, the legislation that we have that governs the protection and preservation of wetlands in the country. There are a raft of policies, acts and standards that seek to preserve and protect wetlands. These are there to protect wetlands and must be followed. It is actually the law to protect the wetlands. Anything other than that is violating the law. So therefore, we must understand what legal reforms are there. It is an offense to disturb wetlands without any official authorization. And I like the previous speaker before, I think it was Farai Okonya, who described or who gave us the definition of a disaster. And a disaster is the destruction, pollution, or scarcity of essential supplies. And for us, wetlands is an essential service, it's an essential supply. Non-exposure of the law does not mean it is okay to proceed with the development in wetlands. Currently, there are legal reforms to strengthen the laws. For example, it is recommended to improve the enforcement powers of EMA, the Environmental Management Agency, and complete the exercise of wetlands mapping audits, and then finally integrate into town planning systems on a digital GIS database. So in terms of the law, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have that governs wetlands or the preservation of wetlands. We would obviously start off by what is called the Ramsar Convention. This is an international convention globally on wetlands. So that would probably be our highest law enforcement of wetlands globally. So we do follow that as a country. Below that is actually the constitution. If we don't know, but actually the Constitution of Zimbabwe has clauses in it that actually talk to protecting our wetlands, of which I will show you in my next slide some of the clauses that allude to the Constitution of Zimbabwe. Below the Constitution of Zimbabwe, we've got the Environmental Management Act, and that is a piece of law that governs the protection of wetlands in the country. We've also got the town planning. I know there are a number of town planners here present. We've got the town planning legislation, and we've also got Water Act, which is also run by the catchment councils. Clause 73 of the Constitution of Zimbabwe talks about a right to a healthy environment. And you can find that in the Constitution, Article 73, which says, right to have environment protected for benefit of present and future generations. Reasonable measures to prevent ecological degradation and must be ecologically sustainable development. Again, Article 77 in the Constitution of Zimbabwe talks about the right to water. It is the right to safe, clean, accessible, and potable water. And then we move on to Statutory Instrument 113 and 140 of the Environmental Management Act, which says there are ministerial powers to designate and gazette wetlands as ecological sensitive areas and restrict and prohibit development. Ministerial powers are there to actually regulate and conserve wetlands. And Article 97, there's also a first schedule where projects are listed that must have an EIA certificate. So for all these projects that we're working on, they must have EIAs, and I'll show you in the next slide which projects must have an EIA certificate. We've got town planning regulations there that also talk about preserving of the wetlands, development permits, and also catchment councils that go into talking about the polluter pays principle. Polluter pays principle simply meaning that if you pollute, you pay, and water resources should be managed in an efficient manner. This slide here, obviously, the text is a bit small, but what we are trying to allude to here is that within the law, there are certain projects that you have to have an EIA certificate and go through the registration of certificate. Projects that require environmental impact assessments are the following: all dams and man-made lakes, drainage and irrigation projects, forestry, housing developments. That also includes our topic of these days is cluster housing developments, infrastructure, airports, highways, railway. These are some of the projects that we design but that require environmental impact assessments. The petroleum industry, the petroleum sector, oils, pipelines, oil refineries, power generation. There's a lot of solar power going on right now, PV solar development in various regions, various provinces of the country.
These require environmental impact assessments. Waste treatment disposal, geopomona, and all other land disposal systems and sites. So what is the current status? We all read in the newspapers, we read in magazines, we listen on the news, we watch TV, and it's an ongoing song that there is rampant development. But unfortunately, the development is on wetlands. And this is what is destroying our biodiversity. It is destroying our ability to have proper water supply for Harare. This is why it's always a cry that Harare doesn't have water. Harare doesn't have water is because we are destroying our biodiversity. We are destroying the wetlands, the very wetlands that allow us to have sufficient, supply. We talk of illegal drilling, extraction of groundwater in wetland areas. Some companies even drilling for purposes of commercial use and selling borehole water in our own low-density residential areas. We talk of stream bank cultivation. How many times when you go to your rural home, you pass through perennial streams, but you see effects of stream bank cultivation, surface water pollution, groundwater pollution, drainage of wetlands, interception of surface water, meaning illegal abstraction of water, is also a huge problem that diminishes our ability to have proper wetlands and water supply. Extraction of sand. This is quite a prevalent one. I think you are all very, very well aware of extraction of sand for building projects. You see 10-ton trucks parked by the riverbed extracting sand. That is a huge problem and causes degradation of our environment and compromises the ability for wetlands, to survive. Dumping of solid waste. I can't even talk about that. There are so many examples of refuse, solid waste being dumped. So Harare's wetlands, ladies and gentlemen, are being affected by illegal occupations, illegal and unlawful activities and development by private individuals and also approved development permits. So this is a real problem, I think, that must be addressed by all of us. Next slide, please. I like these two slides very much. So this shows you where we are in terms of where we are in Harare. The orange dot you see in the middle is the CBD, and the light blue are bodies of water, and we've got our Lake Manyame and we've got Lake Chivero. And then the red boundary is the greater Harare, if you like. So the reason I like this, it gives us a clear picture of where we are and the bodies of water that we have here, in the region that we live in. So we sustain, or our sustainability is through proper management and enjoying the water bodies and resources that we have here. But you'll be shocked if we go to the next slide, what we are doing in terms of in terms of development in our area. Now you can see that all those red dots that you see there are developments that we have put in illegally or illegally, close or within the wetlands that we have. So in other words, we are diminishing our ability to preserve the wetlands. And from the previous slide up to here, you can see that the color of red is very slowly trying to cover the whole footprint of the CBD footprint that we have. So we are in big trouble. It's not painting a good picture. We are in serious trouble if we continue to develop in wetlands. We are diminishing and we are affecting our ability to have clean water and potable water for Harare, simply by haphazard development in the areas that we have here. If there's anything that you can take away from my presentation, this for me I think is the real deal breaker, that we are really harming ourselves as a nation and as a country. So what are the solutions? Solutions for improved water supply. We need to provide natural water infrastructure in the same way, large dams, Wetlands require no capex or opex costs. The solution is improved water supply, is simply the preservation of wetlands. We need simply to preserve our wetlands. As technocrats, architects, engineers, town planners, quantity surveyors, let us accept wetlands as water infrastructure and a solution for improved water supply and water quality. Next slide. That just gives you a nexus of the water, energy, and food biodiversity, showing the importance of wetlands for food development, for agricultural development, for energy, for engineering, and also for biodiversity, for flora and for fauna. Next slide, please. And again, just very quickly, I can't run away from diagrams and engineering cross-sections. So this is a cross-section of a dam, but obviously you see the suspension and sediment impediments, and siltation in our dams is also a huge problem. Siltation caused by illegal activities, silting up our dams and diminishing our ability to extract water. But there are new developments, as I conclude, that government, and I must also commend government and other bodies for pushing the fight for preservation of wetlands. There are some developments that have happened. Despite the bad, there is some good, but more good can be done. Government have issued a wetlands policy and wetlands guideline. The national wetlands map has now been finalized and published. And also government have recently published a gazette that declares ecologically sensitive areas in Zimbabwe. We have a very important conference happening in Zimbabwe in July, which is called the COP15. COP15 will be held in Victoria Falls this year, 2025, and this presents a golden opportunity to put the preservation of wetlands high on the global agenda. Carbon Markets Association, again, carbon credits are being used for wetlands as a nature-based solution for sustainable development. Community stewardship programs, for example, the Monaville Flay Community Group is advocating for the preservation of wetlands. Next slide. Some of the challenges, there is more funding that is needed to fund preservation of wetlands. We need EMA. They're only receiving a small percentage. We need strict policing. We need strict enforcement of environmental protection. This still remains a problem nationwide. And also some delays in amending the Harare Master Plan poses challenges. Coordination of institutions is also lacking, and also fraudulent parceling. These are some of the challenges that we need to deal with. Next slide. So what is our role? Very quickly, we need to embrace water infrastructure, disseminate the correct information, promote awareness, guide and advise accordingly. Let us take the lead as architects and engineers and technocrats. Let us make the right noise in the right places. And let us design sustainably so that other generations may enjoy the resources that we have. Promote and continue research and development so that food, energy, water nexus chain is not broken. And these are our proposals for technocrats, as to have consultative engagement with stakeholders, advise decision makers and developers accordingly, establishment of area committees under ZIE's area branches and other engineering institutions, concept paper to be presented, national housing and social amenities, and calling for greater coordination and engagement with stakeholders. Engineers and other technocrats is also to actively participate in this preservation of wetlands. And this is just acknowledgements for the presentation and for some of the slides that I've used, some of the institutions that have assisted me, and also individuals there. And with that, I thank you for listening. Thank you.